Support for Elwood City Limits is brought to you by Facebook,
Facebook.com/Elwood City Limits,
Twitter,
@ECL Podcast,
Tumblr,
ElwoodCityLimits.tumblr.com,
and Gmail.
ElwoodCityLimits@gmail.com.
And from listeners like you. Thank you.
And my free time.
Got to get that in there. It's the episode of the podcast that almost wasn't. If we'd been recording this, if we had said, okay, Tuesday, we're going to come in and record this, like that would have been a no-go.
If we had recorded Friday of last week, again, no-go.
So we've both had our bouts of sickness, but in between, we've had the wonderful oases of the days that we've recorded in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, we're pretty lucky. I mean, I think it's because the weather's getting warmer. This is my pseudoscience explanation. The weather's getting warmer. We both had bouts of hay fever.
Well, you may have.
That's true.
Mine is decidedly less natural than hay fever. Hello, welcome to Elwood City Limits. It is the episodic Arthur podcast where we delve into the classic PBS cartoon series Arthur, episode by episode, which is what episodic means in this context. My name's Will Young, your host, and joining me as always is my co-host, Mr. Lucas Mancini.
Hello!
You told me today is the first day that you actually feel healthy in 2017.
That's right. I've just been battling one sickness or another for the past 2 months, and so today I still have a little bit of congestion, but that's the extent, and I'm ecstatic, to be honest. I finally am getting close to 100%. I'm at like 86 right now, so we're good.
Goodness gracious. Well, I'm glad that you don't project being sick. Like when I'm sick, everybody knows it. But when you've been sick, like you don't really see, you put on a good face. You kind of put on a good public face.
Maybe not at work, but let me tell you, if you talk to my girlfriend, she would tell you otherwise. Oh, I'm sick.
But I mean, I think that's what matters. I mean, in the privacy of your own home, you can be as whiny as you want to be. But in public, I mean, it's hard for me not to wear my sickness, my illness on my wrist, so to speak. Not literally. Before we get into our pair of episodes today, a couple things here. Now, at the top of the show, as always, we have our links where you can connect with us. And for the past couple of episodes, I've neglected to mention someone whose name that it just escaped me before we would record a podcast. I wanted to make sure right at the top here we did not forget about them. So on our Facebook page, we have 2 5-star reviews of our podcasts, and we want to thank those people. And the person who has not been acknowledged yet, the second person to give us our 5-star review. The name is Taylor Watson. Taylor, thank you very much for 5-starring Elwood City Limits on Facebook. I want to make sure to thank you as personally as we can. Now, moving on, we have another email to get into. And I'm very happy with the amount of emails we've been getting, but I would certainly be even happier if we got more. ElwoodCityLimits@gmail.com. But that's not to discount this email we got today. Subject line, hello, I love the podcast from, I'm going to pronounce this as Jin, Gin, but it could also be Gin? I'm not certain because as I've looked at...
I think it's Jin.
Jin? Let's go with Jin. And Jin, you can correct us by email later. I've recently looked at our SoundCloud statistics of where this is downloaded, and it's from all over the world, so
Ooh.
It could have easily be either way. Jin says... Hello, Elwood City Limits. I just want to write to express my joy and happiness at finding out about your podcast a few months ago. I'm a listener from the U.S., all right, and I frequently use the podcast to relax after stressful days finishing up my senior year of college. And I just want to take a second there. That was one of the things I was hoping to hear from episode 1 of this podcast. Was the not like the email saying like, oh, you guys are great, like blah blah blah, and like obviously we've gotten quite a bit of that and we are grateful, but because for me, podcasts are my way to unwind. They're a big helper with a lot of my brewing mental issues. I listen to a lot of podcasts on the regular. Just got a new iPod so I can fit more podcasts on my feed. And it means a lot when people say the same thing about something that we're making.
Especially considering they're listening to my annoying nasally voice as a way to relax.
Right. I used to just let Arthur episodes... I used to just use Arthur episodes to relax, but your podcast has definitely added a great layer of content on the episodes you cover. It makes me feel less weird as an adult for enjoying the Arthur storylines.
We're the proverbial cheese pairing to the wine that is Arthur.
What kind of cheese would you be?
I'd be a brie, because I'm a little soft boy.
I shouldn't have had a drink. I'm going to be cheddar because I love cheddar.
And because you stack all that money.
Oh boy, do I wish. I really think you two have a good back and forth. Just thank you for the praise. Appreciate that. I wanted to write specifically to praise a few aspects of the show which I enjoyed the most. Firstly, although the characters in Arthur being animals may be totally irrelevant, I still find it super interesting when y'all talk about the animal hierarchy. I think there are a lot of times in the show where this comes into question, a lot of times where the characters' identities as animals become relevant. For example, I always thought that the Brains family produces such weird ice cream flavors because as animals, they have different tastes than humans.
They would enjoy the salmon ice cream more.
Yeah.
Is that a real one? There was some sort of
There was some sort of like fish head thing that Buster was eating because of course.
But then again, Buster was the one eating it, so that kind of throws that theory out the water. Who knows?
For example, I also think it's interesting when they're treated as people. For example, all the pictures on the internet of Buster with headphones on or Arthur's glasses resting on the side of his face, ignoring their animal ears. Another thing I really enjoy about your podcast is your casual commentary on the American political climate.
Oh, yikes.
No, I did not expect to get that part of the email at all. I expected, if anything, to be like, stop talking about politics.
You silly Canadians.
Which actually, what you don't know is we just came off a 25-minute, half-hour discussion on fake news.
That was a little inside baseball, but yes.
With former podcast guest Evan Stoney. And that was quite the thing to listen to. I'd love to produce you two in a podcast situation. I always find it amusing when you throw in a joke or reference like fake news, and as an American, I enjoy the shout-out. Those are my main points. I'm especially excited for you to cover the episode with Mr. Rogers and the one about green potato chips. It always freaked me out as a kid.
Mr. Rogers.
Well, the good thing is that is the first episode of the second season. So once we leave the season, Mr. Rogers is there to greet us.
And it'll set a long precedent of celebrity cameos, as we've already teased. We have the president, Bill Clinton, on the way. We have, of course, Art Garfunkel, the deity.
Michelle Kwan.
I forgot about Michelle. Yo-Yo Ma.
The Backstreet Boys.
Oh, I'm getting too excited for my own good. We need to move on. But that was from Jin, you said?
Jin.
From, did you say which state? Or
no.
Him or her? I'm not sure.
No, they did not. But they did say y'all, if that counts.
Howdy.
Good luck and thanks, G. Well, thank you very much, Jen. We really appreciate that. And, of course, elwoodcitylimits@gmail.com if you would like your email read on the show or if you would just like to give us your thoughts, whether or not you want it read aloud. We will accommodate. Time to get into the episodes today. First off, like I said last week, this is one that I thought was way earlier in the episode rotation of Season 1. It's Arthur's Tooth. And I believe this one also might have been an Arthur children's book. It's kind of got that very Arthur-centric and simplistic idea to it that it feels like it may have been.
A lot of the ones based on children's books, like the chickenpox one, they seem to be focused on subjects that like really directly affect young people at that age. A lot of them are about growing up, like being 8, the kind of problems an 8-year-old will face, where some of the more original TV episodes are the ones where they kind of get a little bit more out there and conceptual.
You mean they didn't have a children's book about dealing with cootie catchers?
I don't think they had a children's book about Arthur imagining being tortured and killed by his teacher. No,
not outside of fanfiction.net.
That's right.
So the episode begins with the Reed family, sans Arthur, building a house of cards, and Dad is kind of the one putting it up, and it's a very tense situation. They've got their kind of bass-heavy background music going, and then all of a sudden there's like a big slam, and it's like Arthur's slamming a door upstairs. The thing is that when they confront Arthur about this, it seems he's been doing this for a while, and I'm just like, why would you pick that time of any time in the world to be building a house of cards?
What I thought was interesting about this is usually like in cold opens or even in the episodes, Arthur's not the one being the nuisance to the rest of the family.
Yeah.
It's weird to see DW, Arthur's mom, and dad team up against Arthur for once.
Yeah.
Which I thought was kind of funny. But so Arthur's technique, what he's doing is he's slamming this door because he's got a string tied to the doorknob.
Yep.
And then the other end is tied to his tooth. It reminded me of, have you ever seen Jackass 3?
Yes, I think so.
Do you remember when, I think it was not Dave England, Danger Aaron. It was Danger Aaron had a loose tooth or a bad tooth. And so what they do is they tie one end to a sports car and the other end to his tooth, and then they drive off.
Yeah, that sounds familiar.
This is what that reminded me of.
Hot take. I actually like the Jackass movies.
I like the Jackass movies too. I don't think that's that hot of a take. Ebert and Roper gave him Jackass 2 2 thumbs up, if you'll remember.
Well, of course, but I just think it would be something that you wouldn't necessarily assume somebody likes. But no, they're good, unclean fun. Yeah, and I'm wondering how this didn't work at all. Like, you would think that Arthur's tooth was caulked down with cement, in that it can't be loosened by the force of a door being slammed.
Well, and I think we get more into this later, but the animators kind of paint themselves in a corner. Because Arthur doesn't normally have visible teeth, they have to animate the tooth in this very strange way where it looks like it's the only tooth he has.
Yeah.
And it kind of sticks out, and
it makes that creaking sound.
There's I mean, of course, because it's all fictional, but there's artistic liberties being taken because this tooth is wiggling all around like it's just about to come out, yet when he bites on rock candy, it doesn't, which is kind of morbid when you think about the sensation.
Yeah.
But so what I think is happening is they're, playing with the animation. They're playing with physics here.
Yeah.
The tooth seems a lot looser than it is, where I think it's supposed to be a lot less loose, like if this was reality. I think what's happening is it's starting to feel a little bit loose, and Arthur's trying to force it before it's time.
I just, and I feel like if it were my baby tooth, it would have definitely given by this point. However, I probably wouldn't have done this because it would have been very painful. Much like Imagine Dragons, Arthur's just a sucker for pain. So the beginning of the episode is Arthur realizing, of course, the cold open kind of ends with Arthur being like, if you were the only kid in the third grade who hasn't lost a baby tooth, you'd be desperate too. And the episode begins with Arthur finding his first loose tooth, and he announces it to his parents as they're sound asleep. And it's a big thing. I'm trying to remember, because obviously it has been a long time since I've had a loose baby tooth. Were we as kids this obsessed with teeth?
I think so.
You think?
Yeah.
I can't. It's hard for me to say. I don't remember. So I mean, I was more obsessed with the. I mean, I guess. I don't know. It's hard to say.
Just like your nickname, Cheddar, it's all about the money.
That's one of the...
As Mr. Wonderful of Dragon's Den would say, or I guess for you Americans of Shark Tank, it's all about the money.
It's all about the money.
When kids know they're going to get $1.
Yeah. That's go on.
For those sweet, sweet ivories, when they know Dwayne Johnson's going to crawl through their window and deposit cash
or Vin Diesel,
tax free. I think that's why kids are so obsessed with it as a kid.
Yeah, I think you're right. That was one of the only ways to get money. Yeah, get money. And I guess so, but it just didn't seem like it was such a cultural thing. Throughout this episode, it's very much like a badge of honor almost for kids, and I don't remember it being that big a deal with me and my friends. More of just I got a loony from the Tooth Fairy. Awesome. Arthur kind of reveals to Buster that he has a loose tooth, and Buster very excited for him. Then all of a sudden, Francine does this incredibly audible sneeze and sneezes her loose tooth out. Bull. I say bull. No way, dude. Come on. She just lucked into that and sneezed it out. Come on here.
I'm no dentist. I couldn't tell you either way.
I really feel like I find it hard to believe. Francine sneezes a loose tooth out for some friggin' reason. Then Mr. Ratburn comes into the classroom with a AV kind of setup. and he's got a film for them to watch about taking care of your teeth.
Which I thought at first, I was like, are they going to watch Muhammad Ali versus tooth decay? That classic, the seminal classic, Muhammad Ali whoops tooth decay?
I haven't seen it.
It's very old. It's very, very old.
You don't say.
But I think this was, when we actually get into it, it's parodying something else. But that was sort of the original kids, like, hey, brush your teeth video.
Okay. Was
Muhammad Ali, with your help of your good friend, Muhammad Ali, the people's champ, you can whoop tooth decay.
That sounds great. I want to watch that right now. So before he gets started, he says, how many of you have lost a baby tooth? And of course, everybody raises their hand, and he goes, that looks like everyone except Arthur. And right away, I'm just like, this makes too much sense. This is a sting. This is a setup. Because Francine just happened to sneeze her first loose tooth out. Then Ratburn comes in and he's like, yo, who's lost a tooth? And he's like, somehow, I don't know how. Maybe it involves time travel or something. But he knew that this was the prime opportunity to embarrass Arthur.
Maybe all their cycles were just matching up. Their tooth loss
cycles.
Their tooth loss cycles. I don't know.
I don't think that's a thing.
I think I didn't have as many problems with this as you. I think my disbelief was more suspended. Because I was looking at their weird tooth touching too much.
But
to realize how strange all the coincidences.
No, there's
were.
probably it really is just coincidence. But man, it's just a little too unreal. I'm just like, oh come on! Now of all days. You ask that. Let's get real here on this children's cartoon. So no, it's not Muhammad Ali versus tooth decay that Mr. Ratburn shows them. I will add here that we begin the episode-long bullying here as Francine drops the B word, baby.
That's right.
To Arthur.
It's back. I thought we had escaped. Like a lot of the main Arthur plot points being, Arthur doesn't want to be a baby. But again, you know how the episodes have been following a theme for I think this is just a thing from now on. Every episode is going to come in twos. The theme for these two is like Arthur or whatever character doesn't want to be called a baby. They don't want to be seen as young.
This is arguably the most baby heavy episode that there's been so far.
That's right. Get your baby counters out.
It gets nuts.
Baby. Does anyone have a bib for the baby? Well, if it isn't Arthur the baby.
Here comes the baby.
Well, if it isn't Arthur the baby, the Tooth Fairy doesn't come to babies.
Now you're being the baby.
So the movie they're watching is called The Plaque Monster, which, I mean, I haven't seen that Muhammad Ali video, but this seems like a bit leaning too heavy on the silly to be educating. Like I didn't really glean a lesson from this as a kid. You kind of need to be a bit straight up when talking about how important brushing and flossing is, which I mean could be pretty boring, but all the same, it's of a man animal in a rubber suit dressed as like kind of a dragon sort of thing. And you can see, like, on the dragon's chest, there's, like, the eye holes where the actor can see out of.
Well, I thought it was a great detail is that this enemy, this evil, what is he called? Is he called Mr. Plaque or something?
I think it's the Plaque Monster.
The Plaque Monster. You can actually tell this is a great touch. The animators went out of their way to make sure you knew this is, like, a suit and not real. Because there's not just one set of eye holes. There's two. It's two people, like, standing on top of each other. Like, it's one animal on another animal's shoulders. And that's what makes up the monster.
Wow.
Which I think is a great detail because I'm sure you're going to go on to say, it's a spoof of Power Rangers.
Yes.
And one of the old standbys of Power Rangers is the rubber suits. Mm-hmm. You could see the zippers for yourself.
For sure.
So I thought that was a great touch.
So it's the Plaque Monster, and he's attacking Tooth Town, which is just a mouth, and has a drill with him, and just like a nice place to build a little home. Just gotta get rid of these pesky teeth. He starts like drilling him, and then there's like a kind of a dramatic narrator that's just like, this looks like a job for the Flighty Fluoride Scour Rangers. And it's these four obvious Power Rangers pastiches, and it's just like, I can see what to expect from the new movie coming out this year. And they're all kind of, dressed in those primary colors. They even have a little takeoff of the Power Rangers theme with like a 3-second, go, Scour Rangers, and they kind of do a kick line to it. And they all kind of attack with like toothbrushes and stuff like that, and floss and all that kind of stuff. I remember thinking this was super cool when I was a kid because I loved Power Rangers, and seeing whenever a show would do a parody of Power Rangers, which was really common because it was so popular back then, I'd be like, it's the Power Rangers in another show I like.
Much like DW, which we'll learn in a later episode, I was not allowed to watch Power Rangers when I was a kid. Too violent.
Ooh, I don't know how I got away with that because I don't think my mother was oblivious to the fact that Power Rangers is kind of violent. Although, I mean, they did always do the thing at the end of the episode where it's like, we use martial arts for self-defense, never to attack, kind of thing. So you gotta slap that on there. Then it goes to the lunchroom where Francine is doing tricks, quotation marks, with the space in her teeth.
This was the moment where I made a stunning realization.
Oh.
Do you remember the Gleeping episode?
Yes.
And when you said, this next episode's about Gleeping, I went, ugh. Mm-hmm. And then you were like, Lucas, why did you make that noise? And I said, I thought it was this episode where they spray stuff through their teeth, and I was really grossed out because I thought they were talking about gleeking.
Oh, right.
This was the episode I was thinking of when I was mistaking them for gleeking.
Right.
Is this gross, this grody, grow nonsense that Francine and then eventually all the other kids get up to in this episode? This was the stuff that was disgusting me.
Okay, but first it's, Francine kind of showing off and really not doing anything interesting. It's all she's doing is drinking a straw through her tooth and drinking and eating Jell-O through her tooth.
Gross.
Big
Even that's kind of gross.
But why though?
It's just weird. It's just not how things are meant to be.
Okay.
Rubbing Jell-O all over your gums.
I don't think I can understand this any more than I already don't. But then, they're outside. They're drinking apple juice, and Francine, kind of sprays the juice back through the hole in her tooth, which is apparently disgusting.
She's just spitting it on the ground.
And I will say that didn't gross me out, but just for a second, cards on the table here. Being a 20-year-old adult, I've seen some things on the internet. So when Francine yells "squirting contest,"
you're talking about like Wipeout highlights? Highlights of the show Wipeout?
Yeah, that's exactly.
All that water squirting everywhere?
That's exactly what I'm talking about.
You're talking about like on like Great British Bake Off?
Yeah.
When Miss Mary is like, all right, we got to get that icing on there right, squirting contest.
Yeah.
That's what you're talking about?
Yes, that is what I'm talking about.
You're talking about?
Yeah.
You're talking about on Pokemon, the Pokemon, when the Squirrel Squad's got to put out a fire?
Yeah.
And they're like squirting contests.
Yes.
That's what you're talking about?
Exactly, yeah. No, and I'm just like, I don't want those two to mix together. I don't like the...
I hear you.
I don't like
Worlds
the
collide.
I don't like the commingling. That's weird.
I'm with you.
I've seen some stuff as a 20-year-old, including the Squirtle Squad.
Yeah, and you're like, why is this ripping all that stuff off?
Yeah, no, I don't get it. This is where I put down, because Arthur tries to do it, and he doesn't have a space to do it through his teeth, so he just kind of spits it on himself. And Francine says, does anyone have a bib for the baby? This is... So, like I said, this... From concept, this seems like it belongs earlier in the season. Also, by Francine's role here, she is back to being the bully, the antagonist. It feels like this belongs way earlier in the season because it's such a weird whiplash of just like we've had Francine-centric episodes. We've kind of developed her character a bit, and then she's back to being this like back to being really mean.
I think once again, though, it's like you have to always remember with Francine, she's not necessarily being purposefully vindictive. I think this is another case of Francine doesn't realize how much she's hurting Arthur's feelings. And I know that might sound silly because she's saying things as mean as, we need a bib for the baby, which is like, that'd be mean if I said that to you right now. Right. But I do think it's important to remember with Francine that, like, I think this is just the way she kind of carries herself. She's an 8-year-old. 8-year-olds say some crazy stuff, and I think Francine doesn't realize how much her words hurt.
I don't doubt it, but it's also at the same time, like, at the end of the episode, she kind of realizes when she's really hurt someone. But there's so much evidence here of Arthur being just cast out from his friend group because of this, even from Buster, who is very supportive of him. And it's just like, you know that this is your fault, Francine. Like, I don't understand why you're really doing this. It's hard to reconcile at points, but I do understand what you're saying there. So Arthur is going to take measures to get this tooth out of his mouth by any means necessary. His dad kind of meets him in the bathroom, and Arthur requests a specialty for dinner. Well, first off, his dad has milk and cookies, and Arthur says, I hope they're the crunchy kind. And then he requests an extra well-done steak for dinner so that he can chew the tooth out. Now, as we get to dinner, and he's, her dad's like, extra well-done steak like you requested. It's a big honker. That is a plate-sized steak. That's all he's eating for dinner. They're a very one food family for dinner, as we've seen. It's either all mashed potatoes or all Brussels sprouts. This time, all steak. And then Arthur kind of, he saws off half of it and then puts the whole thing in his mouth. This thing looks like it could be the size of half of my hand. And he just puts it in his mouth, chews through it in like 5 seconds, and then just gives a big, like, strained swallow. And, like, I love the look on Dad's face. He's just, like, got the fork up to his mouth with his mouth open, just like,
Well, I was making a similar face to Arthur's dad because as a kid I never realized this, but this whole sequence of Arthur trying various foods to try and chew the tooth out, I found very visceral and uncomfortable because I was putting myself in Arthur's shoes. I haven't had a loose tooth, of course, since I was very, very young because I have all my adult teeth. Yeah. But I was picturing the feeling of having a loose tooth and then crunching it on stuff. Like, again, after the well-done steak doesn't work, Arthur's dad brings out corn. And then Arthur's later eating like Pop Rocks and like real. Yeah. I'm thinking about it. It's one of those sensations. It's like nails on a chalkboard where you think about it. You're like, ooh, that gives me the icky.
He has corn on the cob as entree, and for dessert, it's peanut brittle and rock candy. Ooh. And it's just like, because
even saying it now, it's like, oh.
Well, because even though you and I haven't had a loose tooth for now 20 years or whatever, it's still like the sensation of tooth pain. And I've gotten tooth pain because of like lack of flossing and stuff like that, and just equating that with like chewing and
not even pain though, just having it move around and like
the weird mouthfeel. So then Arthur is eating the rock candy or whatever, like I think it's more of like almost gum in his room, and DW comes in with a shark necklace on, or I should say, excuse me, DW comes in and she says, I know how to get rid of that tooth in a flash. Turn into a shark. So obviously she just learned about sharks at the aquarium recently.
A little bit of continuity here. I wonder if this episode takes place right after the episode where DW goes to the aquarium.
Could be, but that episode did take place in the summer.
Good
so
point.
they wouldn't have been at school. But whatever. So she went there to learn about sharks, and she got a necklace with a shark tooth on it. So Arthur gets a plan. He goes back to school the next day. I will say, Francine is being such a bully that Binky is following her lead because Francine says, it's like, here comes Arthur the baby. And then Binky does a yes and on that, and he says, yeah, here comes the baby.
Which isn't a great yes and.
So Binky is Francine's crony in this episode.
He's not very imaginative, crony.
No, what?
Here comes the baby. Oh yeah, it's a baby. A Binky that would not fly on improv night.
He adds a little sing song to it. That's as good as he could do. But then Arthur puts a ruse forth. He got the shark tooth from DW, the necklace, and this was a bad plan from
Bush League stuff.
From conception to finish. It kind of makes like he lost his tooth, and then Francine, of course, wants proof. So he has the shark tooth in his hand, but he's gripping the necklace part and most of the tooth in his hand, so you can just see the tooth pointing up, and it's obviously like, it looks like it's the size of a guitar pick, basically. So it's just like
That's true.
That obviously didn't come from your face, Arthur. And then of course Francine yanks it away, and find out it's a necklace. He just like, you must have really liked that tooth to make a necklace out of it,
which is a weird insult. That's like kind of a weird, because like she kind of,
I feel like
she acts like she just gave him a good zinger.
I feel like it's kind of gendered almost, of just like, boys don't wear necklaces or
oh really
necklaces. That's how I always took it when I was a kid. I will say what is funny about this is that when Arthur's trying to make like he lost a tooth, he puts on a bit of a voice. He goes like, not so fast. It just so happens I lost a tooth last night. And he's just like, how would a person who lost a tooth talk differently?
Your Arthur lost a tooth voice sounds like a bad Sean Connery.
It does a little bit. I'm trying to figure it out. It just so happens I lost a tooth last night. Exactly. That's not bad.
I escaped from Alcatraz.
The Rock, it's a good movie. Yeah, so Arthur's gambit failed. His next idea is to get somebody to just punch him in the mouth.
Again, bringing back the Jackass theme of this episode. Hey, I'm Arthur. This is the mouth punch.
Yeah, and then it fails like a jackass stunt because he tries to get Buster to do it when they're in art class.
Oh, by the way, I'm almost certain now that Elwood City is in the Massachusetts area. This was the final piece of the puzzle.
Okay, go
was
on.
in this art class. Arthur is wearing a Boston Bruins t-shirt when he's painting the pictures. It's a Boston Bruins t-shirt. It totally is.
I'm not sure.
You got to take another look at it, my dude, because that's totally what it is.
I know that it's yellow, but I feel like it's yellow and blue, not yellow and blue.
No, it's yellow and black, and it's a bee. There's a bee with a circle around it. That's what it is.
Okay, all right.
I'm just excited. It's in Massachusetts.
It's definitely not an exact replica of the Boston Bruins.
Next episode, Arthur's going to be like, how about that Tom Brady? I love Casey Affleck. He won the Oscar.
Yeah, next episode he's going to be getting right down to that. So he tries to get Buster to do it for him, and he has a great line. If you were a real pal, you'd punch me in the mouth. And then, like I said, alluding to Jackass, Buster closes his eyes and kind of winds up with a fist and then ends up going forward and accidentally hitting Binky's canvas and then having to get out of there. Speaking of Binky, then Arthur decides to enlist Binky's help to punch him in the mouth in gym class. And, Binky's at first all for it. Like he's got like holding his head by his hand and like, winding up. But then he stops and then he just breaks down in tears and runs away screaming, "I can't do it." So, as much as it is weird to have it this late in the season, it does make a lot of sense after after Bully for Binky, because it's like, Binky kind of abhors violence in a way. It makes him very emotional, and he doesn't want to hurt people. So that makes a lot of sense why he never fought anyone. And then Brain has designs a special robot to kill Arthur. I mean, I guess is what
this part
is it to get the tooth out by way of murder.
The reason this part is so crazy is because we've seen like stuff like this in dream sequences before. The time machine.
Yes.
Remember the time machine?
Yes.
But this is real.
Yeah, he made this.
This happens.
What it is,
I have so many questions. First off, where did Brain get 16 tons? Where did he get a 16-ton weight?
What it is that it's a quadrupedal robot. It's a robot on 4 legs, and in the center,
truly a weapon to surpass Metal Gear.
Yeah. And in the middle is kind of a place to put somebody's head, and on top is a 16-ton weight. And the idea is that it will drop down on the head and dislodge the tooth. But of course, in the demonstration where he uses a watermelon or a melon or something, the melon is completely crushed. And as a head would be in danger of having 16 tons dropped on it with the force of a guillotine. And it kind of reminds me a little bit of a shorter version, of course, not as many legs, of the giant metal tarantula from Wild Wild West.
That's a good example. My second question is, why did it need legs? Why does it need to move?
Yeah.
And also, why does it need artificial intelligence? Because the reason they don't try it isn't because Arthur's intimidated by the thing getting squished. It's because it runs away.
It does run away. It starts to malfunction, and it leaves the house. And thankfully, Brain built this robot that is meant to dislocate teeth with a self-destruct button in case anything got too real. So he self-destructs it as it leaves the house before it can cause any real damage. And it's got like claw arms too, so he could theoretically grab someone by the neck and forcibly put their head under 16 tons of pressure.
You know what? I was about to make fun of Brain for giving it a self-destruct sequence, but his quick thinking might have avoided like a Skynet situation.
Yeah,
who knows what that thing would have gotten up to?
I think with the possibility that anything could have artificial intelligence, you have to put a self-destruct on there in this pre-Skynet age, in this post-Skynet age. Excuse me.
Dun 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 dun.
Yeah, pretty much. So then Arthur is still at it with the door trick. It's not working, and his parents finally decide. His dad says, "That's it. You need professional help." But by which they mean the dentist. So Arthur has a dentist appointment booked for the next afternoon, and Francine tries to intimidate him by saying, if it doesn't fall out, they'll have to yank it out. To which Arthur has quite the imagination of the dentist's office. This is
like a dentist's office out of Old Boy.
Yeah, it really is almost anime in its terror because Arthur's imagination, and this must be his first time going to the dentist because he doesn't have a clear picture of what the dentist's office is like. He pictures it as like a cavernous like dungeon.
Very Hostile Part 2.
Yes, yeah. And the dentist is like this green, not really an animal. It's almost like sort of a jackal or just a green-skinned demon who is washing his hands in this like orange, this like tangerine-colored water, which is
Probably Faygo.
And there's like flies and bugs crawling on the wall, and he gets these two big pliers and essentially just like building grade pliers, and then just sticks on Arthur's tooth and like puts his feet up on the chair and starts pulling, and to Arthur's pain. And that's what he imagines the dentist to be like. Did you ever get a tooth removed by the dentist?
No.
I did, many times actually. Because when I was a kid, and here, kids, I'll dispel a rumor for you. It is not at all the process that is described in Arthur. What happens is, when I was younger, I had teeth that grew on top of my gums.
You know what? I have had my wisdom teeth removed, but that doesn't really count. But anyway,
it's a bit different. What they do is that they freeze your gum so that it goes numb, and that happens it lasts for about an hour. And so when they pull the tooth, and then sometimes other dentists will just like put you under with gas, which they did for my wisdom teeth operation. So they freeze the gum, and you can't feel anything. All it feels like is a little pull, and it really doesn't hurt at all. And then I had it done. I don't think I'm exaggerating. I think I had it done like 6 times maybe. But every time after I was done, I got to go to Dairy Queen and get a Blizzard.
There you go.
Yeah. So it's not a bad memory for me at all. And it got rid of those teeth, which were like really weird and ingrown. So kids, getting your teeth yanked is not all that bad. So Arthur goes to the dentist. He's a bit intimidated, but it turns out that his dentist, Dr. Sozio, is super nice. This dude is super nice. He's got such a nice, warm voice. He's like this older bear with these glasses. Like, he just seems like a really nice guy. He's the guy you'd want your dentist to be. Arthur's, anxious about getting his tooth out, and Dr. Sozio kind of says, we're not going to have to pull it. Everybody's teeth falls out differently, because in the Plaque Monster video, the fact was that between ages 4 and 7, most children lose their baby teeth. Whereas Dr. Sozio says, I didn't lose my first baby tooth until I was nearly 9. Everybody, and the key word is everybody is different. And so he just instructs Arthur to just wait it out, and it'll come out on its own. So the next day at school, Arthur, again, is accosted by Francine if it isn't Arthur the baby. But then the minute...
Really, like, they could use some originality, huh? Yeah. They find their well and they stick to it.
And as soon as Arthur drops the facts that he learned from Dr. Sozio, like, everybody turns on Francine. And it's not even like medically, like, it's not even like he's citing a medical journal or something. He's just literally said, some kids don't lose their teeth till they're nearly 9. Everybody's different. And immediately Francine is like, everybody's turning on me. This sucks. And
that's how kids are, though, right? They'll turn on a dime when presented with any information.
Yeah, and now Arthur kind of has that confidence, so he's able to kind of step up to Francine a little bit. Then she suggests that they play a game called Tooth Fairy. Whoever she throws the ball to loses a tooth, but Arthur can't play. He's way too young, and the Tooth Fairy doesn't come to babies. And then Arthur, instilled with the new confidence given to him by his dentist, says, if you ask me, you're being the baby. And that finally gives Buster the confidence to stand by his man and be like, Arthur's right, Francine. And they all walk away from Francine.
She says, wait, you can't leave me. I'm the Tooth Fairy. Yeah, very matter of fact.
Yeah, like, it was weird. It was something you would expect like a villain to say as their like subordinates are leaving. It's like, you can't leave me.
Yeah.
And then Francine kind of just absentmindedly throws a soccer ball, and it just so happens that it hits a nearby pole and bounces back in Arthur's face. And at which point Francine immediately regrets what she's done, and this is kind of where she hits kind of her, not point of no return, but just this is the point. This is when Francine realizes she's gone too far. She'll make fun of Arthur, she'll break him down emotionally and spiritually, but not physically. She's not into physical violence. And of course she goes to check on Arthur, but wouldn't you know it, The soccer ball was all he needed to get that tooth out of his head. And then the episode ends with Arthur going, "You're the tooth fairy, aren't you? That'll be 25 cents, please." And they're like, everything's fine.
Inflation. Kids nowadays, they're getting a toonie. For you Americans out there, that's $2. Well, actually, that's $2 Canadian. So that's $1 American dollar.
Pretty much. Okay, and now a word from us kids. Did you see this one?
I did. I wasn't a fan of this one because I guess this might just be a weird Lucas Mancini thing. I wasn't into zooming in on all the kids' weird mouths.
You've got a real thing for teeth and mouths.
I'm telling you, ever since I saw Old Boy. I just can't be looking at all those teeth. One thing I will say that is notable from this Words From Us Kids, besides the weird mouth fetishization, is the kids draw sort of a artist rendition of the Tooth Fairy, what they believe the Tooth Fairy to look like. One kid thinks the Tooth Fairy looks like Falcon from Captain America, like exactly.
I didn't notice that. From the comics or from the movies?
I guess I'd have to say from the movies. I think the one in the comics now looks pretty similar to the one from the movies.
Yeah, I think so. Not? But I was thinking of the older one in the comics because like Falcon with the white suit and like it's a bit more. Yeah, in the movies, it's more like mechanical.
So I'll actually say the comics. It looks like the spandex Falcon.
Yeah, okay.
If you could go back and look at it, I think you'll get a kick out of it. But that's what it looks like to be.
All right.
I thought it was just a funny rendition of the Tooth Fairy because usually the Tooth Fairy is this very like. People think of it as this feminine thing with like a tutu and these little like angel wings. This one kid draws it, and it's like it looks like Falcon, which was cool.
Which would be awesome because Falcon is awesome. They do get their theories. A few theories are put forth of what the Tooth Fairy does with those teeth, including the Tooth Fairy grinds up the teeth to make magic. The Tooth Fairy's home world is built out of teeth, so all the buildings are kind of built out of, like teeth are the brick. And Tooth Fairy has statues of everybody on Earth and puts their old teeth in the statue. Did you have any theories about what the deal was with the Tooth Fairy when you were young?
Ivory market? I don't know.
Okay. How much did you get as a kid from the Tooth Fairy?
I honestly don't remember. I want to say it was above 25 cents.
I think I got a loonie.
I think I got a loonie as well.
Also,
I really don't remember though.
Also, did you put it under your pillow?
Yes.
Okay, because I didn't.
Oh.
My parents encouraged me to put it in on the nightstand in like a little cup, and then they would replace it. Probably because it would be easier to get to in the middle of the night instead of having to move my head up while it's on the pillow.
Have you ever seen the Dwayne Johnson film?
No, I haven't.
Me neither. I bet it's not good.
No. Anyway. We move on to the second episode, and it's DW Gets Lost. Now, this is something that I actually discovered not in watching this through the podcast. This episode has Nadine doing the cold opening, because this is a DW-centric episode. And so she has a little speech here, and, it has with lines like... It's like, I'm here because we feel it would be unkind to present this story without a warning. And just kind of doing a bit of a disclaimer for the audience. Here's the interesting fact. This is a parody of the opening scene of the original Frankenstein.
Oh.
So I think it was the last time I watched Frankenstein, and some of these lines are taken word for word. But of course, what kid in the 90s would have watched Frankenstein?
That's so interesting.
But no, it's true. And like here, I'll put the Frankenstein bit right here.
Mr. Carl Lemley feels it would be a little unkind to present this picture without just a word of friendly warning. I think it will thrill you. It may shock you. It might even horrify you. So if any of you feel that you do not care to subject your nerves to such a strain, now is your chance to, we've warned you.
Yeah, so there are lines in there like, if you don't care to subject your nerves to such a strain, well, we warned you. And that is note for note from the Frankenstein opening. And it's the same idea because, the original Frankenstein movie came out in the early 30s, and it was kind of at a time where, there was no established horror movie tropes, and they wanted to present it as a story, but also warn people that it was going to be like the scariest thing you've ever seen. And, you know, it's a story, you know, I think the opening goes something like, it's like a man who tried to something without reckoning with God. It's the same look as the beginning of this episode. It's a guy walking out from behind a curtain and addressing an audience, because at the time, movie theaters still kind of had the look of like stages, and some directors would treat it like that. It's why the original Dracula kind of looks more like a stage play than a movie, because that's kind of all they knew at that point. So anyway, extremely nerdy. I love horror movies, and I love the original Frankenstein, and I was so jazzed when I found out that this was a parody of it, and I thought it was so note perfect for the people who know what it is.
Well, as someone who didn't understand that was a reference, I'll tell you what, though, this framing device of Nadine sort of setting it up, I found it really engaging. Like, I was like, all right, what are we getting into here?
Yep.
Nadine, for the entirety of this episode, sort of acts as an audience surrogate, which is a weird like fit for her character, but I think it works. This episode doesn't really have a protagonist. It's sort of DW kind of acting a fool and then kind of coming to an conclusion.
Yeah, it's more of an adventure.
Nadine's role there is to be the audience surrogate, the voice of reason, and be like, okay, like...
Yeah.
Anyway.
So her whole thing is introducing kind of the theme of the episode is, you know, this is the story of a girl who just wanted to be grown up. And it's about DW trying to be more mature than she really is. Her example is of DW trying to help her father as he's kind of putting cakes into his catering van. And cakes look good, by the way. They're like yellow with pink frosting. Like, it looks real good. So she wants to help him bring the cakes in, and he says take one at a time. DW then has like a stack of like 5 or 6. And the problem is not that she can't carry them, because she seems to do fine. It's that she steps on a frosting tube and accidentally slides into the van and drops all the cakes.
This reminded me of those workplace safety ads we used to have here in Canada a couple years back. The ones that were banned after like 2 weeks because they were super morbid. I'll set it up for you non-Canadians out there. But we had these crazy like R-rated graphic workplace safety ads here in Canada, like that were on just daytime television, and one of them was this woman in a kitchen, and she's like, I'm supposed to get in some sort of accident today, but that won't happen, and so she slips on a grease stain and is engulfed in flame, and it's like screaming morbidly.
No, it's not even that. It's the narration is like, you know, I'm currently in like my second year at a community college or whatever. I was going to get married on this date. I was going to do this. And then I had this accident, and then it's like her like tripping, and like you said, the
slips on a grease stain,
and then you just see like just a half second of the grease frying her face, and it's horrifying. This
was on like you could see this at like, again, this was for a span of like 2 weeks.
Yes,
but this would be on at like 4 p.m. in the afternoon. It was made by the government, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, there were other ones that kind of implied the same thing. It was like, it would be like, this is the story of this inanimate object, and it's just like, you know, one of them was like a ladder, and
those ones ran for longer.
They did, and they weren't graphic, but they also like were super terrifying to watch, because it's like, you know, this particular step on the ladder, it had been used many times, and one day it just decided it couldn't take anymore, and there's a guy like who is almost all the way out the ladder, and then he steps on it. It shatters, and then it cuts to black, and you just hear the guy fall.
Yeah.
And it is like, oh, God.
The other banned one, though, because these really graphic ones only lasted like 2 weeks, but the other banned one was the one where there was the construction worker, and it shows him like falling on a van or something. Like he like falls off. Anyway, I'm sure those are somewhere on YouTube if you want to pull them up. But that's what DW slipping reminded me of. Hey, Arthur's dad. This isn't DW's fault. Proper kitchen, workplace, safety first.
Yeah, and I mean, you guys think that we Canadians are all nice and everything, but when it comes to our safety ads, we do not F around. We are serious about workplace safety. So as we end the cold opening, DW interrupts Nadine on stage. She's in her mother's work outfit that we've seen before, and is also dressed in her makeup, and she kind of looks like a clown. Because she's got like the eyeshadow, the lipstick, the blush and everything. And then finally, DW's trying to walk in her mother's high heels and accidentally falls off the stage. And so is DW trying to act more grown up. The episode begins when DW is talking with Emily, her friend, on the playground. Have we seen Emily before at this point?
She was in the gymnastics episode?
Yes, she was. Okay, so this is perfect Emily. And Emily is showing off her new earrings, which look terrible. These earrings look terrible.
Oh, it's a kid.
No, but I don't care. Like, kid or adult, these earrings suck.
Okay.
And, and I'm not saying that, like, oh, she made them and they're bad. It's like she bought them, obviously, and they're terrible.
Now, I was confused by this. Doesn't she say she got them from her mom? Or you know what? She says her mom bought them for her.
Right, and later in the episode, they're returning them.
Yes.
So these terrible, it's like one big jewel with like 3 hanging off. It's so gaudy. They're made of actual stones.
Which DW makes this, she kind of makes like an IRL version of the shrug emoji.
Well, see, I was just going to get to that because after a little bit of an absence, we have an Arthur meme alert.
Oh, is this an Arthur meme alert?
We actually get 2 in a row because I actually saw this recently. So the DW shrug is one that I've seen used. She goes, "Of course I am," and the freeze frame on it is pretty choice. And then right after that, we get Arthur, who goes into the fridge as we cut back to home, and he's got this big piece of cake that he hears somebody coming in the door, and he just shoves it in his mouth. So the screenshot of Arthur going, "Ah," and then like putting it into his mouth, definitely seen that before.
And Arthur kind of keeps that role as a punchline in this episode, which I actually thought was pretty funny.
Yes.
Like, it's weird to have Arthur as like this ancillary punchline.
Yeah. It actually kind of helps to flesh him out a little more of like kind of seeing his more goofy side. I liked it. You're right. DW asks what Arthur what a stone is, because of course she's obsessed with Emily's earrings and the fact that she has them. She asks her mom the same question while also ratting out, like in one sentence, she's just like, it's like, "Mom, Arthur just ate a whole piece of cake. What's a stone?"
Arthur's mom's got a great line. She goes, "Oh, you could have ate an apple."
And then Arthur says, "I was too weak from hunger to chew it.
This is a great
I
little
needed
bit.
something soft," which is like, good try, man. Real good try. And then we get DW trying to work her magic as being the master manipulator. She, it's the same way that I would try and manipulate my mother into trying to buy me Wendy's when I was a youngster. She says, "What kind of stone, DW?" DW says, "A stone like in beautiful earrings like every girl should have." And immediately her mother knows exactly what to do. She just says, "No." So, of course, DW is very insistent that she get her earrings. But her mother says, "You're not old enough and they'll turn your ears green."
Okay, I gotta ask.
Yes.
Is this real?
I was going to ask you the same thing later on. I'm not sure, and I feel like I should have looked it up.
I should have looked it up too, because I've never met or I've never seen a picture of this, and I've never met anyone who's ever said they knew anyone where this has happened to
Right.
them.
It's either like a myth or an old wives' tale, or it really does happen. The only thing I can think of is like, sometimes when you bruise part of your skin, it turns a bit green. And that's the only thing I think of. If your ears are too small, then maybe it'll turn part of them green from bruising.
Maybe that is, and it's like super cartoony, like they're just exaggerating it. That's probably it, Will.
Maybe.
Because I was thinking, like, this reminded me of that episode of Magic School Bus.
Oh, where Arnold turns orange.
Where Arnold turns orange because he eats too many carrots?
Yes.
Is that real? Magic School Bus is pretty based in science.
I think that there is some kind of a phenomenon. Like, I think that there is some truth to that, at least. I'm no scientist, and in fact, if you have any examples of your ears turning green or your skin turning a certain color after eating something, please write in elwoodcitylimits@gmail.com. But I think it is if there is enough of like a dye substance in a food and you eat enough of it, you can turn a certain shade. And I think that was the idea, was that the Arnold's the snack he was eating was seaweedies, and I think that they just had enough of like a natural dye, the orange color, that he just turned orange.
God, what a moron, that guy. I'm on Pluto, I'm going to take my helmet off.
Hey,
what an idiot.
You had to have somebody worthy of the Darwin Award to really get the most out of Miss Frizzle's lessons. You had to have the idiot.
No wonder Carlos was always roasting him. Carlos, that jokester.
If we ever get a Patreon, we should totally do like side reviews of the Magic School Bus. I watched that again like a few episodes last year. It's pretty fun.
Oh man, that Carlos, eh?
Yeah,
he likes ruffling those feathers. He's got some stuff to say.
Carlos, and then this whole green ears thing leads to a great dad joke. as Dave Reed is making a salad, and DW says, "I don't care if I have green ears." And he gets these two lettuce parts that are perfectly ear-shaped, holds them up to her head, and he just goes, "They just aren't you, DW." At this point, DW is so fixated on the earrings that she's talking about them in her sleep. As they're putting Kate to bed, she's like, "Earrings. I like your earrings. Do you like my earrings?" And even more so than that, she comes into the dining room the next day, and she has her mother's earrings. And instead of putting them on her ears, she glued them to her hair.
Arthur's mom's like, "How'd you get those in your ears?" I'm like, "Yo, take a closer look, my dude. Like,
Put your glasses on, ma'am."
Yeah. You can see these giant white blotches of glue to her hair.
Yeah.
How'd you get those in your ears, though?
So, of course, the only thing to do is to cut out the parts of DW's hair that have the glue in them, because, of course. And the great one here, as Arthur's mom is cutting DW's hair, Dad is just like, "What have we always told you about glue, DW?" And DW has this sort of not rhyme, but just sort of phrase that apparently was taught to her by her parents. "Glue is for paper and not for skin, and never put it in your soup."
Hashtag never put glue in your soup.
Man, really?
Words to live by.
I mean, I guess this must have been a problem at one point, just gluing up the soup. So they managed to cut out that part. And then eventually, Mom makes a deal with DW. If they go to the store and she takes a look at the earrings, then Mom will have the final say if DW's too young or if they find a pair that actually, could feasibly work. And, just really to entertain this notion and follow it all the way through with DW. And DW says she promised she'll wait if Mom says that she can't have them. So the next day, and where really the bulk of this episode takes place, is the all-in-one mart, which is kind of the Walmart pastiche. And I will say that I wrote down not even all, but several of what the announcer at All-in-One Mart says.
So the first thing he sets up is the sort of the mission statement of All-in-One Mart is that All-in-One Mart is a store big enough to swallow your entire town.
Yes.
Which is a very cyberpunk concept when you think about it. But yeah, I was going to say I didn't bother to write them all down, but the flavor text that the intercom speaker is saying throughout this episode, I think they expected nobody to pay attention like me and you do, because some of this stuff is like some biting commentary on like Walmart and just consumer culture. It's hilarious.
Yeah, like honestly, at the time, I didn't get it as a kid, but as an adult, I really enjoyed it, and I felt like this was definitely the episode where the writers got to cut loose a little bit, and like obviously not go like blue or anything, but they got to like maybe shoot a little higher than the comedy aimed for their younger kids demographic. I'll just give you a couple of them here. So. Now on sale, pre-worn sneakers for lazy people. Free samples at our water fountain. Army surplus wind turbines are now on sale for cheap air conditioning or whatever. And then the last two near the end of the episode I really liked. Who doesn't like the taste of fresh, warm, carbonated milk? The wonderful snack that lulls you to sleep and burps you too.
Do you know what it reminds me of? You ever played You Don't Know Jack?
Yes.
It's like the fake advertisements in You Don't Know Jack.
Okay. And finally, don't forget to try our chocolate-covered cabbage. It's the dessert that makes you go, ugh.
He said at one point, half off at the free sample table or something like that. Free samples are half off.
Yes. And books without vowels are half price.
Yeah.
There's a couple of those half price jokes. So as soon as they get in the store, Mom meets Mr. Crosswire. Mr. Ump Tray himself. So then Mr. Crosswire really wants to talk with Mom and just kind of gives her like as my accountant, could you spare your best customer just 5 minutes? Or would you rather I take my business elsewhere? So really holding her time for ransom here.
Mr. Crosswire doesn't seem to for a businessman, he doesn't really understand how taxes work unless he's trying to be directly malicious.
Right.
Because he says, if I wanted to give that much money away, I'd run a charity. Mr. Crosswire, I don't think you get to pick.
Yeah, really.
I think you got to give them what they asked for.
Well, of course, he has a certain mindset. As he says when they get in there, it's like, I wouldn't expect to see a man of my stature in a store like this. But as I always say, you can't be too rich or too cheap. And it's like, sounds like somebody else that I know. Also, another great joke here that you would miss if you were listening to DW and Nadine, because as they're talking, Mr. Crosswire and Mom, DW and Nadine are overlapping with their conversation, where it's like DW wants to try and find the earrings and be back before Mom knows she's gone, because Mr. Crosswire, of course, talks forever. But what I heard was Mr. Crosswire, he says something about, I want to talk about my liquid assets because my bottled water company isn't doing well. And I was like,
I missed that. That's hilarious.
Get it?
Oh my goodness, that's very airplane.
Yeah. No, it was very funny. So DW is kind of runs around the mall a little bit. They come by a statue of a pig with a chef's hat balancing on one foot, eating a slice of chocolate cake, to which she says that looks like Arthur.
Which is really funny because it becomes like kind of a major plot point, but it also is it does double duty as like a plot point and a joke at the same time.
A roast.
Yes. Gee.
I'm so funny. They circle around and they realize that they've passed that statue 3 times.
Nadine being the audience surrogate,
yes.
It's like, shouldn't we go back to your mom? I think we're getting lost. We've passed that statue 3 times. DW's like, I would have remembered that. It looks just like Arthur.
Uh-oh. So she goes on top of the pig to try and find out exactly where they are. But no, she can't see her mom or Mr. Crosswire. So they decide to go in and check out the security cameras to find out where her mother or the earrings might be. So we get a little montage of DW fooling around with the security cameras and having them bump into stuff. Like there's one where it kind of hits a dude in the head while he's at his kiosk.
Knocks him out cold.
Yeah, like loopy-eyed and everything. Knocks over like a stack of tennis balls and everybody kind of falls over it. They find both the earrings and DW's mom, but doesn't really lead them anywhere. And they finally get chased out of the security room by the goat that works there. And then there's a couple of, so I stacked these all together because I thought that they fit in a really interesting narrative of DW imagines being lost forever in the store. So there's a couple of ways that it progresses. Her first imagination is that DW's Nadine's like, what if we never get out? And then it's our mom and dad back at their house, like in front of DW's bed. And mom says, like, they're near tears and holding each other. And mom is like, why couldn't have been that clunky Arthur that got lost instead of my darling DW? First of all, clunky is such a funny and odd insult to use.
Second of all, when Arthur...
And then to make it better, I'm sorry to cut you off, but this made me laugh so much I had to pause the episode. Arthur is in the door frame watching them cry, and he's got one of the cakes from the cold open of the episode, and he's just eating it like a hamburger. And he's halfway through this cake, and he's just eating it like a sandwich. It's so funny.
Well, he's in the exact same pose as the pig statue.
Yeah. I thought that was so funny. And then later on, the second of 3, is DW imagining being stuck there for the rest of her life, basically. And it goes back to her house with old mom and dad. So
this is the one of them pontificates. What if they don't care?
Yes,
I think.
Yeah. What if they don't miss her, or what if they don't miss her? And mom has kind of the old white short hair, the curled one that a lot of old women have. Dad almost looks a little bit like a bigger Harry Dean Stanton. And they're both kind of like, whatever happened to DW? You remember, I lost her 20 years ago. And then so obviously DW would be 24 at this point. And then in comes Arthur, who is 28 and still bumming around home, still wearing the same clothes that look about as stretched out as if he wore them every day for 20 years. And he's got a fountain drink in one hand and a slice of cake in the other. And he's just shoving them into his mouth. And it's just this amazing picture in DW's head of Arthur is just this
glutton.
This complete and utter glutton. It's so funny. Like, because we don't see that with a lot of Arthur's episodes. Like, he's not, I mean, he eats a little bit, but like not to this point. So I think it's funny that DW picks up on it. But Arthur, I think he likes to eat. And then I'll just finally get into the third one after they get a bit more lost. DW becomes the Phantom of the Store, where it's like if they had to get lost, it might as well be here because they have everything they need to live on. So in this one, DW lives in the lives above the boards of the roof, and kind of brings down a rope and grabs a basket of buns from the bakery. And somebody's like, it's the Phantom of the Store! And DW is actually wearing her blankie as a cape and wearing earrings. And then disappears upstairs, and she has like everything she needs, but she's still very lonely and misses everybody, even Arthur. So I just thought that those cutaways were really funny. So as they wander around a bit more, they get to like a free sample table where they have like samples of cheese, and they're so hungry at this point. They get there, and DW...
They were hungry and cold.
Yeah, because like maybe we should move away from the frozen food. So DW can't get past everybody who is vying for these free samples. So she picks up like this like funnel, and kind of does a fake free desserts at aisle 12. And then, she gets to the front of the line, and of course, there's no samples left except for one cheese thing that is taken by this suspiciously large fly that's pretty strong for its size. And then eventually, it all leads up to DW finding Emily in one of the aisles. And DW says, "Are you here to buy more earrings?" And Emily says, "No, I'm returning mine." And then there's a quick zoom out of Emily's whole head, and her ears are green. So there you go. It's apparently true.
Well... In the context of the show,
it's
I still have
true.
my doubts.
Sure. And then Nadine suggests, well, maybe you should go ask Emily if she's seen your mom. And DW's like, I can find her. I'm not a baby. Back with the baby again. And DW's even younger, even closer to being a baby. But she wants to prove that she's mature. And then Nadine suggests maybe mommies and daddies ask for help when they need it too. So then finally DW caves and asks Emily where her mom is, and then, Emily tells her, and then they find her. It's, not exactly the most compelling thing in the world.
Also a funny joke of that Mr. Crosswire has still been talking this whole time. Like, while all these antics have been going on, Mr. Crosswire's going on and on about his taxes.
Oh, yeah, give him 5 minutes, he'll give you 20. Mom says, thanks for waiting quietly for 5 whole minutes. And DW says, that was only 5 minutes? Which I wonder, I should have checked if it was real time, because it could have very well been 5 minutes of screen time.
It's funny, this episode actually feels longer than most Arthur episodes, and I wonder if that's like an illusion because it takes place in 2 big locations.
Right.
So it feels like it's like twice as long or something. Because I felt like, and I didn't find it boring. That's not why I felt it was longer. But this episode, I feel like, I wonder if the Tooth episode's shorter than the average one to give this one more time, or if they didn't. The word from us kids felt short. I'm not sure.
I feel like it probably isn't, but I think probably what you're thinking is that there's a lot more stuff packed into a shorter amount of time, so
a lot of stuff does happen. Yeah.
So DW, says, I've thought it over. I don't really need earrings, because of course she's been convinced by Emily's green ears, and Mom says, I'm impressed. That's a very grown-up attitude, which is the real lesson if there is one. And the episode ends with them going to do lunch, and we get a few kids, including Emily, a few little girls walking past the camera with green ears. Okay. Okay, so let's go back to Arthur's Tooth. What did you think of that episode?
I like the episode, but I have to say I am kind of getting sick of Arthur's anxieties about being perceived as a baby. And that's not Arthur's fault in this one. I'm also getting sick of people accusing other people of being babies. It might just be something where I could totally relate to it a lot more if I was younger. We've been over this before, but it's just so out of my wheelhouse.
Yeah.
I've never been worried. It's been over a decade or more since I've worried about being perceived as a baby. So it's not something that I can really empathize with. I'd certainly empathize with Arthur being bullied in this one, which he straight up is, like being antagonized. And I think it's got a great moral. I like the way all the kids sort of come to the defense of Arthur at the end. That's something not a lot of episodes have done yet, where all the kids kind of gang up and protect somebody. Yeah. So I thought that was cool, but it's just kind of okay. Yeah. That tooth robot, though, that part's really crazy. That's not something I'm going to forget anytime soon.
There were a couple parts of this episode that I thought were kind of fun, and they were really just kind of the one-off parts of it, like the flighty fluoride scour rangers. That's cool too. That whole bit, the robot thing. But honestly, I didn't really like it. I just, like you said, this is one of those ones that as an adult it's incredibly hard to relate to, especially because I don't remember what it was like in that sort of social context to have loose teeth. Not anymore, at least. And I just thought that the characterization, especially of someone like Francine, who I've said at times can feel inconsistent, was wildly inconsistent from what we've been getting recently, and it's the inconsistency that is hard to reconcile with who her character is. And I just think it's like they needed an antagonist for this one, and they chose Francine, and I feel like that might have been the wrong choice. And I don't know, like, this wouldn't be one that I would watch again, and I honestly found it a little frustrating. So yeah, I'm not a great fan of this episode.
You'd be better served looking up the clips of the Power Rangers parody, and if someone has uploaded just a short 5-second video of that mechanical monstrosity that Brain puts together, that's worth digging up as well.
Somebody vined it. DW gets lost. Now, the thing... neither of these episodes were ones with a message, and I feel like a lot of times we're just like, we favor the ones that have a strong message for kids and adults, which is true. I appreciate that. But, I don't want it to seem like, not every episode needs to have a message. And this one, I don't think it really did, or at least if it did, it wasn't super strong.
It's not overt.
No, it's not overt, and it really did feel more like an adventure, and I did like this one more. I didn't like it.
I think the message is, it's kind of like, don't try and do everything yourself, like ask help when you need it, kind of.
Yeah, it's all about acting mature and stuff like that. But all the same, like, again, it's not the greatest episode, but I thought the parts that were, I think, actually writing upwards of the age bracket, as I said, like, they did work. I think that these writers can be very funny. And usually are. And I thought that the imagined scenarios were funny. The all-in-one mart lines were funny. Even Mr. Crosswire got in a couple of good ones. And like I said, the opening, like, I just thought it was very cleverly written. And I thought that it was fun. Like, I thought that this episode was really fun.
Well, I thought you put it really well when you said it felt like an adventure. Yeah. Really more so than any other Arthur episode. It feels like kind of a romp. Mm-hmm. Or it's sort of almost, this is a little bit of a stretch, but it almost follows the hero's journey. Almost.
Okay.
Like, there's a little bit of like a Homer's The Odyssey quality of DW getting lost and kind of having to find her way back to the mom.
Sure.
And there's all these sort of crazy places in the mall they visit along the way. So I thought that whole storytelling technique made the whole thing. Once they get to the mall, it's just, it is, like you said, it's a fun adventure. It's a romp. I couldn't put it any better way than that.
But then of course, we will actually get the Odyssey from DW's point of view later on. Okay, so I'd say mild recommend for DW Gets Lost, and at least for me, I would say I would not really recommend Arthur's Tooth. But of course, I would suggest they're not exactly a waste of your time.
I think these two episodes are an example of two episodes that are probably more fun to talk about than they are to watch.
Yes. I had a lot to say about both of them, so I was really looking forward to talking about them. Okay, thanks a lot for listening to this episode of Elwood City Limits. And of course, you are a big part of why this podcast keeps going. Every email, every review, every Facebook message, retweet, like on Twitter, and like and reblog on Tumblr helps to keep us going. So, of course, here's how you can interact with us. On Facebook, facebook.com/Elwood City Limits. On Twitter, @ECL Podcast. On Tumblr, ElwoodCityLimits.tumblr.com. soundcloud.com. If you'd like to send us an email with any sort of feedback to what we've talked about on the show or about the show itself, elwoodcitylimits@gmail.com. And finally, you can find us on one of two places where you can find this podcast. soundcloud.com/Elwood City Limits. You can subscribe to us over there. It also helps with our metrics. That's been a very helpful way of finding out where you guys have been listening from, how much you've been downloading it. A big shout out to all of our international listeners, and that includes everybody in the U.S. from Dartmouth, Nova Scotia to. Oh gosh, I'll need to write down some of the places that we've been listening to because it's really, really awesome. To our listeners in Mexico, thank you very much. And
¿Dónde está biblioteca?
Me llamo T-Bone, La Araña Discoteca. And you can go to iTunes to subscribe over there. I just got a new iPod, so I'll likely be subscribing to my own podcast pretty soon now that I have the room. And you can rate and review over there. That really helps us find more listeners. And, of course, share this episode around with somebody you know who likes to laugh and loves Arthur. Next week, now this is one where I'm kind of going in blind. I don't know what either of these episodes are about from the title. It is DW Thinks Big and Arthur Cleans Up.
Very vague.
Actually, I just remembered what Arthur Cleans Up is about. But DW Thinks Big does not ring a bell. So we'll have to kind of see how that one plays out. Okay, my name is Will Young, and for Lucas Mancini.
Wait, you can't leave me! I'm the Tooth Fairy!
This has been Elwood City Limits. Thanks a lot for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Baby.